Hello, this is Edward Bevilacqua, the Director of Education for Novum-U, and this short video is going to talk about week 2 of our apprentice program. Week 1, you should have learned a few things. The brain can easily be damaged, but it can be repaired. IQ, your IQ goes down when your brain is damaged. It'll go back up to a certain extent as your brain is improved, but that every job has an IQ range, and you need to find a job that fits in with your IQ. If your IQ is too high for the job, it's not going to be fulfilling. You're not going to keep it. If your IQ is too low for the job, it's going to be too hard and you're not going to keep the job. Also, we learned last week about what is the root to addiction. And sobriety is not the opposite of addiction. Connection with other people is the remedy to addiction. We also learned about the importance of working together flexibly in large numbers. So that's the brief thing of last week. If you don't really get those clearly, I highly recommend you go back and redo it in your spare time. You should know that you can get on our online program from your cell phone. You don't need to be doing it sitting at a computer. And you can also order or obtain one of our textbooks. This has the program in it. So all of the transcripts to the videos that you watch are in that book, which you can talk to your instructor about if there's copies in the classroom, or you can just order it online through Amazon. Okay, week 2. Week 2 is called Inside Our Skull-Sized Kingdom, and that's really starting to get into the nitty-gritty of neuroscience, or our neuroscience-oriented approach to success. So we take the brain and we break it into 3 parts, 3 areas of study. 1 is the connectome, 2 is neurotransmitters, and 3 is the reticular activating system. So you're going to learn about all 3 of these things, these areas, and how they work together and what they do. Starting with the connectome, Sebastian Song, TED Talk, you're going to find that the connectome is the number of neurons times connections. So in the human brain, he says it's 100 billion, but it's now more precisely down to about 86 billion neurons and about 10,000 connections on every neuron. What's stored in these connections. And so what we are pretty sure is stored there are our lived past, memories, our anticipated future, our imagination, our ability to synthesize, our personality. All of these things are stored in the connections between our neurons. How do we know that? Well, you're going to see that we learn that because if you have brain damage or you have a stroke, those things go away. Whereas if you have a heart transplant, you're still you. If you have your arm cut off, none of those things go away. So they're stored in the brain. And so we learn about that and the importance of having good things stored in the brain and having them remembered so that we can recall them. And in fact, now's a good time to remind you or tell you that the approach in our class is kind of like asking the question, if you learn something but you don't remember it, what's that like? And your answer should be, that's like not learning it. Take it to the next level. If you learn something and you don't remember it, you learn something and remember it, but you can't communicate it, what's that like? And again, your answer should be, it's pretty much the same as not learning it. So here, we need to learn things and we need to be able to communicate what we learn. So don't rush through to finish. Don't be fast to finish. Don't take shortcuts. Learn the material, because if you don't learn it, that's the same as you're just wasting your time. So go slow. This is at your own pace. All right. So the connectome, once again, that's the neurons times connections in our brain. And in the human, that's about 860 trillion possible connections in our memories, our lived past, anticipated future, imagination, ability to synthesize, our personality are stored there. What we want to do is have our connectome in the best possible shape that we can. Neurotransmitters. Well, neurotransmitters are chemicals released in our brain and the fundamental purpose is to make us feel good or make us feel bad, make us feel something. And that's either as a reward for doing something that gets us to cooperate as a species, maybe directly, maybe indirectly. But the purpose of neurotransmitters is to reward us for doing things that are in the best interest of our species. So oxytocin, for example, the cuddle hormone, is released. That's the feeling you get when you hug a baby or a person or somebody's in distress and you give them a hug or they give you a hug and you feel good, or you go to an AA meeting, you kind of feel better. You're not craving alcohol so much. That's from the release of a neurotransmitter called oxytocin. Why did oxytocin evolve? Well, it evolved because it's good for us as a species to work together and help each other. So when we do things that help other people, we're going to release oxytocin, and then we're going to feel better. Now that's in a normal, properly socialized person. We're not talking about the extremes of people, but in a typical person, oxytocin is released when you do things to feel good, and that's a learned behavior. So our purpose in learning the neurotransmitters is to be able to dial in who we need to be right now. So for example, just a quick little thought experiment. If you're walking down the street, a lady comes out screaming, my baby's inside that building, the building is burning, rush in, please save my baby, please save my baby. Well, you're going to do one of two things. Basically, you're either going to run in or you're not going to run in. And the thing that's going to cause you to run in or not run in is the release of neurotransmitters. It's not analyzing the thing, thinking about it. It's your immediate, am I going to run in the building or not run in the building? And if you release cortisol, you're going to kind of freeze up and not be able to move. And so you're not going to run in the building. If you release oxytocin, you're going to do it. If you release serotonin, you're probably going to do it. And then you'll release dopamine on top of that as a thing to get you. You now have a mission to get that done. So you're going to learn about these neurotransmitters and how they work. And our goal is to be able to dial in who we need to be right now. Okay, so far the neurons are the physical parts of our brain that store our memories, thoughts, etc. The neurotransmitters are chemicals that are released that make us feel. And then the third part is the reticular activating system, which is located in the brainstem in the back of everyone's head. You're going to learn it's about the size of your little finger. It's a bundle of neurons in the back of your brain. Excuse me. And what it does is basically it's scanning all information available to us to support our beliefs. So if you have a belief that you can't type, and that's an actual belief that you have, every time you make a mistake, your reticular activation system is going to point it out to you. And it's going to say, see, you can't type. If you have a blue car, every time you drive down the freeway, you're going to notice blue cars. If you buy a new dress or a new outfit, everybody who has that same outfit, you're going to become aware of it. If you're having a conversation and somewhere in earshot of you, not known to you, but somewhere in earshot of you, somebody says your name, you're going to hear it, and you're going to hear it in real time. In the old days, before cell phones, when people would go to the airport and you wanted to get in touch with them at the airport, you would call and you would hear them say, would Mr. Smith please go to a white courtesy phone? And Mr. Smith wouldn't notice or recognize anybody else's name, but as soon as his name is called, he recognizes it. Why is that? Well, that's because there's a part of our brain, the reticular activating system, that's always scanning all information available to us to support our beliefs. And information available to us means if we can see it, hear it, smell it, taste it, touch it. It's got to be able to get into our brain through one of our senses. And as soon as it does, we become aware of it. And then that belief, the belief associated with that thing coming into our brain, will trigger the release of a neurotransmitter. It could be positive, could be negative. And that's going to affect our feelings. Our feelings are going to affect our behavior, and our behavior is going to affect the outcome. So you're going to learn how our brain works so that we can create good, positive beliefs that lead to success, so that our reticular activation system is constantly scanning for things that are going to help us become successful. When one of those things pops up or becomes in our ability to become aware of it, that will trigger the release of a neurotransmitter, and that will make us feel something, which will change our behavior and the outcome. So another way to think about it, as we do it all the time, is if you're driving down the freeway, you're not really paying attention. You're singing, you're putting on makeup, you're polishing your fingernails, you're whatever you're doing, you're texting, whatever you're doing in your car, you're not really paying attention to driving. But the instant the person in front of you puts their brake lights on, you become aware of it, bam. And then you're going to do something. And a lot of people, bad drivers especially, immediately put their brakes on instead of figuring out what the problem is. On another, more to that example, if the car in front of you puts on its red lights and you hear tires screeching, you have a belief that you need to stop this car now. So you're going to immediately react faster than you can even process the information, because our brain works that way. You're going to probably slam on the brakes or put the brakes on really, really hard, really quickly as you're trying to figure out what's going on. That's the reticular activating system. So you can see, if we create good beliefs, store good thoughts, anticipated future, live past in our connectome, and our neurotransmitters are adjusted to be released when the appropriate thing happens. In other words, we don't release oxytocin when we pull the wings off of flies, but when the right neurotransmitter is released for the right reason, and then we prime our reticular activating system to be in tune with those two things, we'll automatically be drawn towards the things of success that we're seeking. And if we have developed habits to do those things, we won't even have to think about it. We'll just do it every day.